Obviously, if you know what environmental storytelling and world building is, which isn't hard to figure out, then this video seems pretty self-explanatory. Of course, Gotham Knights needs many types of storytelling and it needs to be good, so no one needs me to say that. What I want to do is look at Arkham, the closest thing we have to Gotham Knights, and analyze an element of those games that works so seamlessly that people don't even really talk about it, more so only experience it. But it's something I talk about constantly when it comes to games on my channel. This is something I think Gotham Knights will achieve as well, maybe even do it better than the whole of Arkham, and I will tell you why. Now, we are talking about not only the environment, but what the environment actually says, because if it says nothing, then you're not going to look at it for that long, or downright not even notice it behind the gameplay, which subconsciously does affect the experience, because story can extend/intensify the atmosphere. Atmosphere and environmental design in a game are very, very important, and I think all the Arkham games do very well at just making an interesting environment, except a lot of parts of Arkham Knight, in my very personal opinion. But what I think makes these places even more interesting is when they stop being just a simple stage for gameplay and become a landmark of depth and story that may just cause you to actually stop where you are to look at the details, Easter eggs, or bits of environmental storytelling that give the place character and immersion. Batman Arkham Asylum and Arkham City are absolute kings at this concept, and it may have to do with Paul Dini's comic writing expertise on these games. I'm not going to give him all the credit, but Arkham Knight kind of seemed to dip off, and he happened to not be working on Arkham Knight, so that could have been a little bit of the cause. Also, if Paul Dini was why Arkham had such great world building, then I hope the comic writer that helped with Gotham Knight, Scott Snyder, has the same exact effect for this game. But for Arkham Asylum and City, most locations in both of them mean something to the overall theme or plot. They aren't just pretty for no reason, they're extremely atmospheric while telling a story at the same time. Arkham Asylum is the most focused Arkham game in my opinion. I believe that this game's theme is all about Arkham Island's legacy and its deterioration into haunted darkness, insanity, and failure. I think this can easily be backed up by the comic book that the game is based on, Arkham Asylum, A Serious House on Serious Earth, that has a very similar theme. Now, some of you have probably learned nothing new, but really think about it. Not a single location or environment feels out of place with the story and theme of this game. Obviously, this is because the game is specifically set on one small island, and that made huge benefits for the game. But the game goes out of its way to show you so many things that show you the theme of the game. Intensive treatment in the penitentiary is filled with Easter eggs and cells that illustrate the terrible and torturous conditions that the inmates have to experience. These buildings are old and falling apart, and the new tech used to contain and maintain the inmates are not saving this place, but only prolonging its eventual failure. They still administer shock therapy, something that has been outlawed for many years in the US. Each building is rotten and filled with rats. Every vent is somehow filled with fungi, leaves, and cobwebs. The medical building is filled with horrific medical tools and procedures that I am very, very sure are illegal. They keep inmates' limbs and sometimes heads in glass jars, sitting right next to their office desks. They kept Killer Croc in a small dark cage and just left the skeletons there. There is a place where inmates go to commit suicide, and Batman built his Batcave right next to it. Let's not forget about the pile of skulls in a cave right next to this cliff. The Arkham Mansion illustrates best the complete disconnect between the quote-unquote achievements of the asylum and the actual reality of this place. There are massive statues of a former and current warden of the asylum as if they are great people, as if this place actually is helping people. What used to be a home is now an office building for running the asylum. Some offices look as if they too are in cells. The Gothic style further haunts this place along with common beetle symbols all over the island. Beetles are symbols for perseverance and infestation, and such a supernatural charm maybe explains how this place has persevered for so long. The sewers and undergrounds are so old you can't even use the grapple hook. The pipes are made of outdated toxic metal, and half of these pipes have leaks. The botanical gardens contain a lot of what I have said already, but the overgrowth and Greek statues are up to interpretation. The graveyard is warped and creepy, but a lamp illuminates a dug-up grave of Amadeus Arkham, the original warden of Arkham Asylum, who eventually became one of its inmates, and now haunts the asylum as a spirit.
I am the spirit of Amadeus Arkham. Even though Amadeus had long since passed, his spirit lived on, surviving, moving through the walls of his asylum. When it chose me, I felt proud. I was honored to continue his work, to cleanse this city. If you are strong-willed enough to follow my tales, you are strong-minded enough to deduce my identity. Come and find me, friend. Together, we will save Gotham.
It seems that this spirit has possessed Warden Quincy Sharp, and like Amadeus did, Sharp tortures his patients in secret, causing psychosis and basically turning them into violent animals. Every location in this game is not just pretty and atmospheric for no reason, but try to tell a story. There are hundreds of small details I could go into that speak to the theme I mentioned before, and it makes for a game that is so focused on its theme and what Arkham Asylum is, that it makes the asylum feel like a real place with a real history, a legacy, which is an easy setup for the next game, which does some very similar things to establish a world. Of course, this ultimately becomes world building, and if your world building consists of disconnected ideas that have nothing to do with each other, then why have it there in the first place? The big example I bring up all the time is Founders Island in Arkham Knight. It's not like the ideas and theme of this island in particular is completely disconnected from the main story. It does show the future of Gotham, where this game takes place, and of course that connects to Bruce Wayne in some way, but my problem is that a lot of that connection comes through speculation. It's never really told to you, and everyone is just said to be on the island. It's never mentioned in the story as anything more than just this person is here. I feel like it is such a great location to illustrate Bruce's feelings towards the future of Gotham, a future of Gotham where Batman will not exist eventually. What do the citizens think about it? Some clearly hate it, but these signs are the only mention of those politics. It's also never brought up why Bruce Wayne is in support of destroying old neighborhoods to modernize Gotham. These ideas are great, but since they are literally never mentioned or connected to the plot of this game, all they are just minor Easter eggs. Like literally just a couple of Easter eggs, not to the extent of Asylum where every room has to do with this. This is very small things you could find that could probably tell you something about it, which is fine, but it's such a massive location and such a huge part of the map that you think they'd want to explain it more or give it more depth, but they don't. Don't you think the politics of this new part of Gotham would be great world building to give the map character? The game is about the fall of Gotham, but it seems like Gotham is becoming an almost futuristic city soon. I think it would be great if the idea was that even without Scarecrow and other villains who are the consequences of the city, that Gotham would have destroyed itself just like Arkham Asylum anyways. But this connection isn't really made, and a lot of these locations are just stages for gameplay and nothing more. Why are so many levels taking place on a construction site? Most notably the unfinished underground mall. What does this mall say about Gotham, the militia, the Arkham Knight, or even Batman? Why are we here? Why are we in this mall? In Arkham City, Two-Face took the courthouse because he used to be a district attorney and is obsessed with law and order. Penguin takes the museum because it is not only connected to the famous Iceberg Lounge, but he is obsessed with collecting things and people. Joker takes the steel mill to be able to make the different materials for creating his makeshift Wonderland. Also, Fire just fits with the Clown of Chaos. Arkham City has a list of environmental storytelling like Asylum does, but I think you get the point. Locations in these two games always have a reason and a purpose to the theme or plot. Gotham Knights needs to do what Arkham Asylum and Arkham City did with its world building. Of course, it isn't as simple as Arkham Asylum, a relatively compact location. Gotham Knights takes place over an entire city and therefore needs something to unify it all into one idea, plot, or theme. Fortunately, this game gives me a lot of hope in that department because that connecting factor that will give each unique area of Gotham purpose is something the developers have mentioned many times before. The 5 families of Gotham. I've made a video recently talking about these 5 families and the 5 boroughs of Gotham, which I will admit that video could have used a bit more research, a bit more comic reading that could have gone into it. I'm sure comic experts could pull a lot more out of it, a lot more speculation, but it's there nonetheless. Each borough will bring about a unique environment that won't just look cool and pretty, but will have a deeper meaning in the context of the story. The entire city is the story, and the main plot is about solving its mystery. The game seems heavily focused on Gotham City already, by having so much detail for the NPCs who quote-unquote go about their business. What really takes the words out of my mouth and tells me how thought out this game really is this quote from Patrick Redding, the creative director. It lets us create architecturally distinct spaces that offer a different kind of story from a traversal and party crashing on crime point of view, but also it allows us to take a lot of the bigger themes of the game narratively in terms of the overall focus on mystery and the Court of Owls and say, how does a Gotham City grow historically? So our neighborhoods reflect different influences and the role that different families have played. It becomes an exploratory environment, a kind of environmental storytelling space that's very different. We needed to deliver density and quality of details, like with every crack in the sidewalk that has a cigarette butt wedged into it and weeds growing out of it and graffiti on the walls, all of it down to the masonry and the stuff that's carved into the bricks, which maybe points you to some hidden piece of history. That's the level at which our Gotham City needed to flourish and be amazing.